it is exactly what you're saying. It's about stepping back a bit, giving them the room to like carve out their own space, because applying to college is the beginning of the process of becoming an adult, or at least it's part of that process. So allowing them to have their own space, but they're not an adult yet, right? And they still need you there.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, here with the lovely Brie Tucker.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you?
So I'm trying some voice dynamics, Brie, because I was just listening to one of our episodes and I was like, I have a little rasp on my voice that I'm trying to get like rid of. It's like you could hear it if I don't pay attention to my voice. You could hear like there's a little like gravelly at the end. You hear it?
Don't
You
even,
hear it?
no, but don't even get me started on voice. Like, first of all, I've already told you, I swear I sound like I have somewhat of a lisp when we're talking. And then plus
I don't hear it.
I feel like I hear it on the recorded episodes. I don't know. You guys tell me out in podcast land if I sound like I slur like a lot. I don't know. But I did have years of speech therapy, so I could give myself that one. But I'm also
I had
always
speech therapy as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Mine was third
Yeah.
grade. Mine was for third and fourth grade.
Mine was like in first and second grade with R's.
Yeah,
I couldn't
R's.
do R's.
R's are
R's,
pretty common.
R's,
I found that out as I
Mhm.
worked in special needs, like R's, S's, T's. Those are very common. And I had all the common ones. I also had Z's because I had S's and C's and all that.
I had the little TCH. I think it's a digraph. No, it's a blend because you can't hear no, it's a digraph. Digraphs are like combinations of letters that you could hear each of the individual letter sounds, and blends, they like go together. Yeah. So anyways, the TCH. So like which, it was which.
Oh, gotcha.
That one.
Gotcha. Yeah, my R's were like
Yeah,
non-existent. It would be like, quown. Where are you going? Yeah.
You would call me Quone.
Yeah.
Quone. Joanne Quone.
See, I sounded cute. It was
It was very
adorable.
cute.
But you know
Very
what's not
cute.
adorable?
Yes.
Still talking like that when you're in college.
Yeah, that's a good segue because we're talking about college today. And if you don't have a teen entering this process yet, it's going to be still a really great episode for you because we're going to really discuss how the whole application process has changed since we were going through it as teens, because it has, and it's bringing kids so much more stress. And as soon as you're aware of this, you're going to be able to see it in your kids when they get to the stage, if they're not there already. So Eric Tipler, MA, is a writing teacher, college admissions counselor, and author of the new book, Write Yourself In, The Definitive Guide to Writing Successful College Admissions Essays. He helps families understand and successfully navigate the college application process. Brie, when I was reading that title, I'm like, thank goodness I went to speech therapy for those R's because I would not have been able to read that. Yeah. So now we hope you enjoy our interview with Eric.
You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast.
Welcome, Eric, to the podcast. It's funny because we have you on to talk about college admissions and writing. However, I noticed something when I was researching you, and that you're like a story consultant for Broadway musicals, and you also write musical theater. Tell me about that. Like any shows that we would know?
Nothing you've heard of, sadly, yet. Exactly. Nothing yet. But yeah, I studied music in college. I moved to New York City 10 years ago to write musicals. And I've done some of that. I also developed a side gig just doing dramaturgy work, helping shows that are trying to get to Broadway. And that's actually, it's kind of related to the book. It's not kind of, it is related to the book because it's all about storytelling, right? Which is the same thing that I work with kids on in their college essays. But yeah, that's another passion of mine. That's very fun.
Okay, I have to ask, which was the chicken and which was the egg? Is the college counseling, did that come first and then the storytelling and the musical part of it? Or did the musical part come first and it was like, I got to pay the bills with the college counseling?
It was both, actually.
Okay.
So I studied music in college and I wanted to be an orchestral conductor. And then by the end of senior year, I realized I didn't have what it took. to do that. And also, I just didn't want to. Once I realized what the job was
Doesn't
about,
that
I was
take like sacrificing your life and like just you have no social life?
yeah, you have nothing, and you don't really have a home. If your career is successful, you're always on the road, and it was
Yeah.
just, this isn't actually the life that I want. And I come from a Navy family. There's a tradition of public service in my family. And so I decided that I wanted to give back through teaching in public schools. So I sort of started doing music, and then I ended up becoming a social studies teacher for several years. So I went from music to teaching. And I was doing a lot of teaching writing then. And that's when I really got interested and excited about how do you teach writing. And several years later, I realized I was really passionate about musicals and moved to New York City to do that. And yeah, the college admissions consulting and tutoring kids on writing and coaching outside of a public school classroom setting, that started as a side gig totally. Like that was how I was, paying my bills in New York. And it just blossomed into something much bigger. I found that I loved the work. And again, I was kind of doing the same thing. During the day, I was using storytelling strategies on my own shows and helping other people with their shows. And in the evenings, I was working with kids on telling their stories. So it just kind of all blended together over time.
That is cool. It's funny how like career paths change. Like my husband actually went to college to become a piano performance major.
Oh, wow.
And he
Yeah.
got into it. He's like, this is going to take all the joy out of piano for me.
Yes.
He ended up majoring in physics.
That husband of yours is full of surprises. That's what I was going to be
He's
like.
full of surprises. Yeah.
He's an engineer, but he majored in physics and was going to be a concert pianist. Like, what?
Well, you've been to my house. We have a baby grand.
I
in the
know
living
that,
room,
but I
and that's
thought
why,
that was
because
just.
then
I thought he was
he's
just
very
really
into it.
passionate. Like, and
No,
the man
he's
lived
really
in
into it.
Germany. Like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But I love how you weave in the storytelling aspect to it, and in terms of like college admissions process. Because I remember when I was a senior in high school and I applied to one school that needed an essay, which was USC, and I was just stuck, absolutely stuck on what to write. And now I'm watching my daughter, who is a high school junior, and she doesn't even want to talk about college yet because the whole process stresses her out.
It gives her
so
hives.
much. So how have you seen the college application process change since we were kids? What is it like for kids now? It's different.
Well, that's a really good question. It is very different. And, work with parents our age, that's sort of one of the first conversations I sometimes have to have, is just about how different it is. I'd say one way in which it's different is the numbers. I got very lucky and attended Harvard in 1995. When I got into Harvard, the admissions rate was 12%. This past year, it was 3.6%.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's, every other selective school you see similar trends in their numbers. So the acceptance rates are different. A lot more kids are applying to school. Back in 2019, 1 million kids applied on the Common App, which is the main platform for college applications. By this year, it had gone up 30% to 1.3 million. So that's how quickly the numbers of applicants are rising. And
so
also, yeah, go ahead.
It sounds also like schools like Harvard haven't changed the number of people they admitted. Like if there's more people applying, they just haven't changed the number of people they admitted. So its chances are lower getting in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's about dorms, at a lot of the private schools, they encourage most of the kids to live on campus, and they have very specific residential life systems. And they just haven't, Harvard hasn't built more dorms, I think, since the 70s. Some of the public schools have. UVA has a lot more housing than it did in past years. Other schools, some of the larger public state schools have expanded.
Okay, so I have to throw in a couple of things here because I have a senior right now. And what you were talking about with the acceptance rates. Okay, so first of all, let me just tell you, my senior is my oldest son, and he wants to major in engineering, computers, cybersecurity. He's not quite sure yet, but he's a tech kid, and this will not surprise you. Joanne, I don't think knows this. He has a Google spreadsheet that is color coded, and he has it divided by their acceptance rates, their tuition, whether or not they've reached out to him yet, whether or not he has to write an essay, whether or not he has to do both the ACTs and the SATs and all of this stuff that he has to send. And it makes me want to cry. It makes me want to cry. I grew up I graduated high school in 98. I lived in Missouri. We had 13 public universities there. And, Joanne and I live in Arizona. We have 3. public
Hmm.
universities. So I felt like it was so easy. It was so easy to get in college. And I don't know if that was because I was in Missouri in the 90s, if it was because it was in the 90s, but like the hoops that my son has to jump through now, I feel so powerless to support him. I see him stressed, and I don't want to tell him, like, oh, make your dreams smaller so you're not so stressed. But at the same time, it's like, I'm having a hard time figuring out how to support him because I don't recognize this process. This is nothing
Hmm.
like it was back
Hmm.
when we were younger.
So I wish I could just snap my fingers and fix your situation
So
immediately,
do I.
right? Because it's so common, right? Like this is what I hear from most of the parents I'm talking to, either professionally or just socially. They are stressed, and they are stressed in large part because their kids are stressed. And
Mhm.
because it's so different than it was a couple of decades ago, they're not sure how to best support and be there for their kids. And two things to say. One, I think it's important to understand we kind of have like almost two separate admissions systems in the United States. If you're not trying to go to a selective school, by which I would say a school where the admissions rate is under 30%, it's
Okay.
not that different from probably when you were, applying in Missouri. And I'm talking about schools like University of Alabama, which has an 80% acceptance rate, Iowa State, which has a 90%, University of Delaware, which is in the 70s. Those are all excellent schools, tier one research universities. You're going to get a great education. You can get a great education at all of those schools. And it's not that different than it was when we were kids. Where it's different is if you're applying to the selective schools, which are probably the ones that are populating your son's spreadsheet. Yeah, that would be the name brand schools, the well known private schools, but also the big flagship state schools like Michigan and UT Austin. That's where parents start pulling out their hair because, they see these lists and they don't know what to do. So it's a
it
very good question. Yeah.
It's a really, like, stressful thing for kids, and, like, I was wondering actually when you said that you went to Harvard, I was reading Adam Grant's book, Hidden Potential,
Mm,
and there's, like, so many things that go into a college application that I really want your viewpoint on this too, and that make the student, like, desirable to the university. With his
hmm.
situation, he said that he had an interview and was able to, like, pull out his magic card deck and, like, show that
Mm.
he had a skill outside of just straight academics. How much does that matter now for kids these days that they have like a skill that they could show that's outside of academics when they're applying to school?
So that's a really good question. It sort of depends on where you're applying, but at most of these top schools, you need both. Every 4 or 5 years, the National Association of College Admissions Counselors does a survey of admissions officers to say, what are your top priorities in admission? What do you look at most closely? And the number one thing is always the student's transcript. What grades did you get and what courses did you take? Did you
Yeah.
take the most rigorous courses available to you at your high school? You're not penalized, by the way, if your high school only has two AP classes and you only took two APs. You're not
Mm.
compared to kids who at other high schools who had lots of options.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
really
good
about how to
point. Yeah.
yeah, that's a major question, especially from
Yeah.
kids from rural areas. What colleges care about is how did you take advantage of the opportunities available to you? And they have a lot of data to look at what those opportunities are. So the reality is these days, if you're applying to selective schools, you kind of need both. It used to be that like, if you didn't have the grades, a great essay or a card trick or something could get you in. But
Oh,
today,
oh, wait, like Legally Blonde? Like
yeah,
a
I
video
would, yeah.
essay.
That
Yeah.
sort of thing, I mean, I
Yeah,
can't 100% say that
I
exactly would
know.
happen, but yes, like that kind of thing used to happen at these
Yeah.
top schools. And, you would have the old Yale admissions officer who was going to take a chance on this kid. Like that sort of thing used to
Mhm.
Yeah.
happen. It doesn't really happen anymore unless there happens to be a large building on the campus with your family's name on it. That's like the only, or,
Good to
Oh.
know. Good to
yeah, or
know.
you're an Olympic level athlete or you're being recruited for some kind of sport like that. Otherwise, there are just so many kids with strong transcripts applying. You have to have a
Oh.
strong transcript that's competitive at that school. And that sort of gets your foot in the door and that gets you to be part of the conversation in the admissions office. And then the next question is, okay, then what would they contribute to our community? So these days, you kind of need both.
Interesting. Well, we're going to find out how you can go beyond that transcript with especially what you write right after this. My water bottle is my constant accessory. I carry my pink one with me everywhere I go, and I honestly get a bit anxious when I don't have it. And I am always looking for ways to make drinking more water easier so I don't even have to think about it.
And that is why we love AquaTrue. Seriously, just one set of filters from their classic purifier makes the equivalent of 4,500 bottles of water. That's less than 3 cents a bottle, and you know how much I love a good deal. Plus, we get to help save the environment.
The filters are affordable and long lasting. No changing filters every 2 to 3 months. AquaTrue filters last from 6 months to 2 years. I can truly taste the difference compared to my old water filter.
AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and makes a great gift. Today, our listeners receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com and enter code NGM at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use the promo code NGM. Imagine a life without sneezing, itchy eyes, or avoiding your friend's house because, oh my gosh, they have a cat. Thanks to Curex, allergies are no longer something that you have to just deal with. They're optional.
My allergies are so bad. I'm allergic to every living thing outside, I swear.
Oh yeah, and orange trees, they're trying to kill me.
So here's the good news. Allergies can be treated effectively, and you can make allergic reactions a thing of the past. All it takes is a couple of allergy drops every day, and in just 3 to 6 months, you could find a real relief.
Curex has changed the lives of thousands of people. Everything is 100% online. You'll connect with a licensed doctor via Zoom or text, and Curex will ship custom medication right to your door to get you going on your journey to becoming allergy-free.
These allergy drops are trusted by doctors and backed by science, with hundreds of studies from top institutions like Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic.
If you're serious about kicking those allergies to the curb, check out Curex. Treatments start as low as $59 a month, and if you sign up now, you can save 80% from the $49 sign-up fee. Go to getcurex.com today for this limited time offer.
Don't let allergies control your life. Take control with Curex. Go to getcurex.com. That's GETCUREX.com.
Lynn, this time of year, parenting can be such a flusterclux.
You've come to the right place. I'm Lynn Lyons, and I've been treating anxious families for over 30 years.
I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host Robin Hudson.
Join us for Flusterclux, a podcast for parents who worry.
Wait, that's everybody.
Yeah, these last few years have felt like one long anxiety attack for so many.
Why do you think parents are always surprised that a podcast about anxiety relates to them, even if no one in their house has an anxiety disorder?
Well, worry is human. Everyone does it, and anxiety shows up when we face uncertainty.
All the parenting tips you've taught me have been essential.
I love to break it down into skills we need to manage worry in our families.
We've covered so many topics: depression, burnout, meltdowns, perfectionism.
Don't forget scary mothers-in-law.
Right, but of course that's not my mother-in-law.
Because that's my mother.
And a listener.
As a psychotherapist, I like to teach parents and kids how to respond to everyday moments in healthy ways.
Managing anxiety really can be taught.
It really can. And I'll even tell you what to say.
We talk about serious stuff, but without being too serious.
Anxiety wants everything serious. Anxiety doesn't stand a chance when we're laughing, even about the tough stuff.
So, Eric, you have been a writing teacher and you've been helping kids actually craft their college admissions essays. Something that I've said before brought me so much stress when I had to write mine. So, first, when should kids get started with this writing process for the essays?
So that's a really good question. If it's the fall, the short answer is now. The sooner you start, the better.
But high school seniors, right?
High school seniors.
Yeah,
I feel like
I feel like I read in your book, you have a timeline in there and you mentioned if you haven't started by Labor Day, you kind of need to get going of your senior
I do.
year.
And I would say in an ideal case, the best time to start is late July, early August. When I'm working with my own students, I like to have them going into senior year, which usually starts around Labor Day, obviously varies around the country, but for my students in New York, it usually starts around Labor Day. Going into senior year with a solid draft of the Common App personal essay, which is the main essay that you'll send to most of the schools you apply to, and supplemental essays for one school. So if you start in July, beginning of August, you have time to do that. That's in the ideal case. But the reality is, everybody starts at different times. And, you just want to start as soon as you can so that you can spend as much time revising.
Oh, yeah. Out here, ready for your mind to be blown? Our kids started school July 17th.
Yeah, they've been implemented
Wow.
already.
We have modified year round here in the Chandler School District in Arizona. So yeah, I always love saying that to people from the East Coast because they're always like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, that blows my mind.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
hate the 4th of July because by the 4th of July, I've only got a week and then school starts. It's
You're
like,
back to school shopping. Wow. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
most of the Florida public schools start in August, like the second week of August, and that seems early to me. So July. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the latest out here is like that first week, maybe the second week of August. That's the latest
Mm.
schools we have. So it was also like they started on July 17th and it was 117 on that first day. So there
I was
you
gonna
go.
say it sounds hot. It
Double
sounds
whammy.
hot to me. Arizona school in the summer.
There's
Yeah.
all air conditioned. That's the like redeeming quality of it. All in air
Yes.
conditioning. So
Very nice.
when we all applied to schools, they didn't have the common application.
Nope.
Can you like walk us through what is the common application? What do our kids need to have for that?
Yeah. Can I just throw in the fact that my kid has to have apps freaks me out. It so freaks me out because I thought that was the app. I'll be honest with you, Joanne. I heard about it last year and I thought it was the application process. So I thought, okay, well, we'll download the Common App because that's what it sounds like to me. Common App application. Yeah, no, not at all.
It is.
Yeah, it's a common misconception that like the Common App, what it is and what it does. So it's a software app on the internet, on the World Wide Web, I guess. And it's a clearinghouse. It's a national system that most of the universities in the country, not all of them, but most of them use it to sort of centralize their college applications.
Mhm.
So, and it actually started when I was applying to college. I remember my Harvard application was a common application, but it was the only one. Harvard was the only one that used it. So it actually wasn't common at
I
all.
didn't
It was
apply
just
there.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
had
like,
to do
don't
that-
I feel
that
like an
one.
idiot? I didn't realize that. But okay, I
No,
definitely was not.
No one did.
I was not applying to Harvard either.
Well, and it also wasn't it wasn't a thing back then. It was like I had to fill out separate applications for every other school. So it was like a fake Common App at that point. But now it's real. And most schools use it. There's a couple of exceptions. The University of California system doesn't use it. Georgetown doesn't use it. And MIT doesn't use it. But most of the other selective and a lot of the less selective schools use it. And the idea of the Common App is really great and student-centric. The idea is that you should just fill out this one application and then, check a bunch of boxes and it gets submitted to all the schools you want to apply to. College application process is easy, simple, and done. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
The reality, unfortunately, is that most of the selective schools require you to answer their own questions for your school and write their own essays for each individual school and what's called the supplement for that college. So, I've had parents think, oh, well, we just have the kid do the Common App and it'll be easy. And actually, no, you have to sort of really look and make sure you understand what are the essay questions every school is asking, what's the biographical information every school is asking. It's all on one app, but there are actually a lot of separate applications within it.
That's insane.
It is. Oh God,
It
yes.
is.
It's just insane. So it's like I'm hearing you say that, and I'm like, so it's really no different than when we had to apply for all of these different schools because you still have to apply for the different schools, like all the supplemental questions and everything.
For the selective ones, and some schools that want to get more applicants, and there's a number of reasons schools would want to do that, make their supplements very simple. So all you have to do is check a box. And a lot of these larger, less selective schools, like the ones I was mentioning with 70, 80, 90% admissions rate, they don't have as many requirements on the Common App. But for the selective schools, the ones that people usually come to me because they have questions about, and it's important, like as your son is making his spreadsheet now, it sounds like he's already doing this, but he should be going into the Common App and seeing, okay, what are the supplemental essay questions for every school? And this is really annoying. And it isn't. I mean, it's insane that I had to write a book this thick about how to apply to college, right? It shouldn't be that
That's insane. Yeah.
complicated.
It is insane. And I will say, like, the other part I have going on is that my son I don't know how to say it, but he likes to do things his way and he doesn't always want input from his parents. I know he's an abnormal teenager.
An engineer and a teenager who likes to do things his way. I can't imagine.
What? Right? What are you talking about? Yeah. So like, I don't even know a whole lot about what all he's doing. It's very limited where he'll let me come in and help. For the most part, I've seen my assistants coming in where he's trying to fill out the financial documents. So he's like, Mom, come sit with me and tell me how much you make and, and tell me this and that. And what's my social security number again? And I'm like, oh, you better start memorizing that, dude, because that is your number going forward.
Not anymore. So, Eric, hearing how our kids sometimes won't even accept our assistance in this college application process, I want to know like how we as parents can really set our kids up well for college admissions. And we're going to go into it right after this.
No one told us the truth about parenthood. Why? This is the podcast everyone needed before they had kids, because now that those little ones are here, there is a lot to unpack. I'm Rachel Shepardota, and I am your host for the podcast No One Told Us, where we tell the truth about parenting and let you in on all the stuff you really should have known about before having kids. I am the founder of Hey Sleepy Baby, but this podcast is so much more than sleep. We'll be diving into all the topics that you really care about and need to know while you do your best job raising those adorable tiny humans. Our goal is to just make you feel less alone and less overwhelmed. There are so many things that no one tells us before becoming a parent, and I think that we should really pull back the curtain on becoming a first-time or second-time mom or dad to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll have a little education, a little fun, and a whole lot of heart that goes into each and every episode. So join me and our amazing guests each week to hear us talk about what no one told us.
Are you overwhelmed by the things that get in the way of you doing what you want to do? Are you looking for ways to simplify life to better align with your values? Do you want to create space in your schedule so you have room for more of the good stuff? Play, joy, relationships, gratitude, and more? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I invite you to check out Edit Your Life, a podcast to help you edit the unnecessary from your life so you have more room to enjoy the awesome. Through episodes with me, Christine Coe, and a range of super smart, compassionate, and thoughtful guests, you'll come away with big picture insights and practical ways to declutter your home, schedule, and mental space without getting bogged down by perfection. I have always believed that small moments and actions matter tremendously. My goal is to help you find agency and space in your life through doable baby steps that will leave you feeling accomplished instead of overwhelmed. Check out Edit Your Life wherever you enjoy your podcasts.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Owen, self-help author with 19 translations of my books, global keynote speaker, and life coach. My podcast, Make Some Noise, has been serving up self-help in a simple-to-digest way for the last decade. The topics brought in each episode are practical and easy to implement around topics such as working through fears that keep you stuck, different modalities of therapy, managing your negative self-talk, and more. We bring you guest experts, solo episodes, and I even coach listeners on the air around relatable struggles. I also do my best to weave my sense of humor into some heavy topics because, let's face it, life can be pretty hard, and it's so much better when we can have some fun while walking through our challenges. Whether you're seasoned in personal development or just starting out, Make Some Noise podcast will help you become the best version of yourself, the person you're proud of when you look in the mirror and show up in your life. Simply search Make Some Noise with Andrea Owen wherever you listen to your podcasts.
So let's talk about like how can we set up our kids the best for college admissions in that process?
So I think there's a couple of ways to do it. One is I think it is important to learn what you can and educate yourself about the process. Again, because it's so different than it was when we were kids. Maybe not to start by the College Confidential online forums, which can be useful, but a lot of parents find that it's just more stressful to start going there. So, not to plug myself, but like my book, I think is a good starting place. The first part of the book, which is, I don't know, maybe 20% of the book is written with both teens and parents in mind. And the goal is to give you sort of a primer, a background on how the process works, how essays are used in the process, and what admissions officers are actually looking for, which is sometimes different from what we think they're looking for. So I think my book is a good starting place. If you want to do a deeper dive, there's another great book by Rick Clark, who's the head of admissions at Georgia Tech, called The Truth About College Admissions. It's sort of oriented towards families. And the last book I would recommend too, if you really want to go deep and like unpack it and find out how the sausage is made, the journalist Jeff Salingo wrote a book called Who Gets In and Why, where he was actually embedded, like a wartime reporter in the admissions offices of several different colleges for a season. And he really writes about what he saw. So that's, I think, a first step is just to do some reading about it. talking to other parents at your school of kids a year or two older than yours who have been through the process. And it can be a very school specific process. So that can be a great resource for learning more. And also getting to know your school's guidance or college guidance office, maybe getting to know the counselor, just knowing what resources are there, and also knowing what does that person do and is it aligned with what your kid wants? And what I mean by that is this. At a lot of large public schools, for a college counselor, it's a lot about triage. They like one person may have 250 or 300 kids a year, and they're not trying to help your kid get into the most, selective college they can. They just want to make sure that like all of these kids who want to go to college get in somewhere and get financial aid. Well, on the other hand, if like there are kids in Manhattan who go to private schools where each counselor has 20 kids or 30 kids, and they're all trying to get them into Ivies, so you have very different situations. So it's really helpful to look at that. And it's not like I have never met a guidance counselor that I didn't think was doing the absolute best and just love the kids and their work. But it's just a question of like, is what they're doing aligned with what your kid is trying to do and what you want to do for your child?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't seem fair in a way that Manhattan private educational institutions that they almost have like agents like going for them, Ivy Leagues.
Well,
where
yeah, I mean, I can hear you on that. Like I can say, so from a parent of a senior right now that doesn't have I didn't have anybody I could talk to because my son is the oldest of all of my friends' kids. So I didn't have anybody really. I have a sister who has kids that are older, but they went to a smaller school and they had completely different majors they wanted to go into. So like every time I go to her for advice, she's like, I can't help you, Bree. It's not the same thing we had going on. But I can say, for starters, that there's a lot of private resources out there. People like you, Eric, that like parents can seek out and find and hire to help them get more of that personal. And I almost feel like that's going to cost you less than it costs for the private school tuition in Manhattan.
Yeah.
But, you get a little bit of that. And then, because I know that both Joanne and our kids go to public school here at our local school district. And yeah, it's hundreds of kids per counselor.
Hundreds.
And there's one counselor at my kid's school that does just college support. She was introduced to all the parents at the senior meeting that I went to a few weeks ago. And I have to tell you, I have done a lot of the things that you said not to do. I went onto the forums on Facebook and joined the getting ready for college stuff. And all it did was make me feel like I was behind. And it made me flip out. My anxiety did not help my son. He was like, go away, Mom, you're killing me.
And I have to say, of course you did, because everybody does that. And it's because the process is confusing and there aren't a lot of reliable, informative sources out there. And so you did what everybody does. So that's a completely normal, natural response.
Well, yeah. And then we got your book and I wish I had this last spring. It would have calmed me down because you said, that first section alone, it was I was telling Joanne, it was such an easy read. Rarely do I can't say that I've ever read another book about college applications that I had a hard time putting down.
And Eric, this is a huge compliment. Like you have no idea how big this is because Bree also is very much against reading.
She's huge. I'm not a huge reader. I can't sit and
she will say this. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I can't sit and do a lot. I prefer my Audible books and everything. But in reading your book, I found it so helpful because you were very I know you all are scared. I know you think it's this, but one of the big things that really helped me was you had mentioned and also in the beginning about how this is your college essay is the opportunity to show them why you are the good fit. They're not looking for reasons to say why they shouldn't accept you. Your college application is giving them the extra oomph of this is how awesome this person is outside of their grades. And then I also loved in your book, you have a lot of questions that start them thinking about what they're going to write about. That gives them a lot of that brainstorming process, because I know that as much as I love my son, he has no idea what he wants to write about. And all I've been saying to him is listen, the book says you got to be done by Labor Day and clock's a ticking, dude. It's almost Labor Day. We got to get going on this. But it really you have some really good and they're simple answers. They're just write one word, write one sentence. And taking those pieces really does help, I think, kids to be able to zoom in on what they want to talk about and make it less overwhelming and less scary. So from one stressed out parent, thank you for your book. It has been very helpful. It has helped me get a little bit more zen with my son applying for colleges because while he has some he's applying for in state that are like non-essays, he's also reaching for some Ivy Leaguers. And it's scary as a parent because you want everything to work out well for them, but you can't help them if you don't know what they're going through, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's, I've heard so many parents say almost word for word what you said. And, I'm not a parent myself, so I don't have personal experience of this, but I have a lot of friends who are parents. And, one of the things, and tell me what you guys think, because you actually are parents, one thing that it seems to me that like as your kid gets older, your job as a parent changes, right? Like it's one thing when they're a baby, and then it's kind of a different job when they're a toddler. And it's a completely different job when they're a teenager. And now it's shifting again, right?
Yeah.
And, my sense is that, and again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a parenting expert. This is sort of just based on what I've seen work and not work with families over the years. But yeah, it is exactly what you're saying. It's about stepping back a bit, giving them the room to like carve out their own space, because applying to college is the beginning of the process of becoming an adult, or at least it's part of that process. So allowing them to have their own space, but they're not an adult yet, right? And they still need you there. And, that's actually the kind of thing I've seen really work, is having those sort of check-ins of like, okay, I'm going to let you do your own thing, but if there's not an essay done by Labor Day, we need to have a conversation about that and decide what we're going to do, because, so that's the kind of approach I've seen work, is like having those kind of check-in moments like that.
Yeah. And especially like, I think a big thing you brought up there that I want to be clear for parents listening, like the whole checking in on Labor Day thing and checking in on his process, that is only to support what he wants to do. I can't come in, like we can't as parents come in and say, you need to apply to 6 colleges. You need to have this, that done. Like all that does is add that. I know Joanne totally agrees. All that does is like,
so there are parents.
So I'm telling you, if that's you and that's the process you've been taking, I'm begging you to take a step back. Take a step back.
To figure out their own.
Yeah, the metaphor, and this is actually in the contract of families that I work with privately, I put it into there, is that I recommend a student-centered approach. And what that means, like the metaphor I like to use, the student is the captain of the ship, or it's like the student, he or she, they are the CEO of their application process. And parents, teachers, outside advisors like me, we're all the board of directors. So like, they're setting the goals and they're doing the work, and we're just here to give advice and help keep the ship off course, and also notice if it goes off course and then do something about it. But yeah, I mean, usually when the parent tries to take the CEO role in this process, I'll just say it usually leads to a lot of friction. Yeah. And often not the good outcome. Yeah.
No.
Well, Eric, these have been such great tips for parents, and especially like those going through the college admission process with their teens. Oh my gosh, like I know I have to start this soon, and I am definitely going to be digging into your book. Or actually, I'm probably going to be handing your book to my daughter and being like, here's some help. Here's some help. Let me know where you want me to come in. What's coming up for you now that you're excited about?
Well, a couple of things. And one, I would just say a tip I've gotten from people who have used the book this year so far, depending on how your family works, try leaving the book out for your kid to find it. So, and then they'll pick it up and start reading it themselves.
Throw some candy next to it. It might
help. Yeah, exactly. Even better.
Starbucks gift card.
That's what I was saying. Or just put a nice Starbucks
poking out
next
the book
to it, right?
Yes, exactly. Mocha latte, something like that.
In it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So a couple of things I'm excited about. I'm excited about the book, which just came out. I've been, it's based on strategies and techniques I've been using for a decade now. And I beta tested it for the last couple of years, but this is the first time like there's actually a book out, and schools and families that I'm not, don't know personally are using it. So that's very exciting. And I'm getting lots of feedback from families, which is also really exciting. Another thing is that I just launched a new Substack that's focused on helping parents, and especially parents going through this for the first time, understand the kind of things you were talking about, just understanding the calendar as it unfolds, what they should be focusing on this month, what the checkpoints are, and when they need to take action if things aren't happening. So that's very exciting. And I'm just excited, every student and every family I work with, I learn something from, and this book is putting me in touch with more people, and I'm learning more. So that's just like really exciting too.
That's awesome. And you mentioned something that you have a PDF for people.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things I found is that it's important to know, whatever you're in high school, your student is, your child is, there are things you can do to help them prepare for college, and that changes over time. So I tried to put this all into one infographic. It's a one-pager PDF that's a roadmap to college. I have that on my website, and I think there'll be a link to it on your website. Great. So if you sign up for my Substack, you'll get a free copy of that. And I think some of my students actually print it out and put it over their desks to sort of stay focused over the years.
I'll probably print it out today and be like, my son will come home and be like, what are you doing?
What is that?
Yeah.
Helping!
I'm helping.
I'm being helpful.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to speak with you.
Well, I have to say, after talking with Eric, I'm a little less stressed for the college admissions process. The whole thing about teens are the guiding force for this. It's their thing, and we're only here to set little checkpoints, I think was very helpful.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Brie? I know you were really stressed about it with everything coming up.
Okay, well, after the interview, we sat and talked to him for a good 10, 15 minutes just because I was like, I'm so excited when I can talk to somebody that can make all the little pieces come together and make sense. And also tell me I'm not being a terrible mom. I'm not way behind. And I know that that's crazy, but like he said, those forums, they are dangerous. If you're prone to anxiety, they are dangerous because people will give you so much information and they'll be like, your child's a junior and you don't even know what colleges they're going to go to yet.
Oh, I know.
And you're like,
I get so mad at that.
Crap. I didn't know I had to have that all done. And so anyway, it's not as scary as it sounds, but it is definitely, like he said in the interview, more competitive than it was when we were younger. The Holderness family, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. Oh, as we're recording this, they just recorded a video and they put it out of applying for colleges in the 90s and applying for college now. And I was laughing so hard because I'm like, that was me in the 90s of I don't know, I'll go wherever. Here's my handwritten application. I'm going to send it off to 2 colleges because I'm bound to get it into 2 of them. And my son is doing 6 and just hoping that a couple of them work out the way he wants. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, I highly suggest Eric's book to anybody. We'll have a link for it in the show notes. I felt like it was very well written, very hands-on, very interactive, and an easy read. And it really, as a high anxiety mom, it helped me feel relaxed.
Awesome. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And remember, the best mom is a happy mom. Take care of you, and we will talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.